It might be raining, but nothing is going to stop us from having our summer concert series out here on the plaza.
The first one, and it's Thompson Square today.
Yes, it's the first one here anyway. Yes, it is.
That's
All right, let's get to the good, bad, and the ugly. First up, the good. Kindergarten students brightening each other's day with a handshake and a hug before class. A Texas elementary teacher selecting a special greeter each morning in hopes of spreading positivity between students.
That's pretty cool. And next, the bad, a driver lucky to be alive. Look at this, after an axe flies through his windshield. The Canadian man was hit in the head. He doesn't remember what happened. Authorities have no idea where the axe came from. And this is not the first time this has happened to him. He had only a concussion. He's fine. But he says 10 years ago, a steel rod went through his driver's side window. He survived that as well.
Wow. And the ugly. Here's something you don't expect to run into at the golf course. A moose. The animal charging after a couple in a golf cart, chasing them off the course in Utah. A witness says the moose went after the cart twice before losing interest. They can be scary. Jeez.
That's not fun. All right, hey, the summer concert series kicks off this morning. It's Friday. Right. It's raining, but it's still fun.
Thompson Square, ready to rock the plaza all morning. Fox and Friends starts now.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's right-hand man is expected to visit the White House today and hand-deliver a letter to President Trump.
The meetings have been very positive. We'll see what happens. It's a process. Hopefully we'll have a meeting on the 12th.
New report just came out. Federal prosecutors have now interviewed James Comey as they now weigh whether or not to charge his former deputy FBI director, Andrew McCabe, with a crime for his obsessive lying.
President Trump pardoned conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza, who pled guilty to violating federal campaign finance laws.
If he thinks that there was an injustice, he is going to exercise his pardon power.
Samantha Bee is apologizing for referring to Ivanka Trump using vulgarity.
This transcends politics and party and everything else. This is about loathing and hate.
Koinonia.
That is correct.
14-year-old Karthik Nimani crowned the Scripps National Spelling Bee champion.
Kind of exciting. This is the beginning of the summer for us, the All-American Summer Concert Series, brought to you by Keurig. And guess who's back for is it the fourth time now?
That's awesome. Thompson Square, they're back. Fantastic. They come back every year. They're loyal to Fox and Friends and to our viewers. Great group.
It was drizzling during the tease, but it's going to clear up, they say. It's going to be a beautiful morning. Look at that. Look at those ribs.
Pete,
thank you.
Pete always likes to run out during the commercials and grab food out there, so you'll have to bring some.
They're always there. They're wonderful.
So Kiefer and Shauna, married, 17 years, have a kid, Rigney. They did something I'm in awe of. They actually took off for 5 years and just focused on their son.
On the family.
Really? Is that amazing?
And now they're back.
You know what happens when you have a hit song, Are You Gonna Kiss Me or Not? You can live off that for 5 years.
You make a lot of money, you take 5 years off, then you got to write another song.
I know.
They must be out of money.
Right. They're back. They're back here to make some, and they're always great. Meanwhile, at 2 minutes after the hour, let's begin with a packed hour. We have a Fox News alert. President Trump will receive, get this, a top-secret letter straight from the desk of dictator Kim Jong-un. That's going to be sometime today.
It will be hand-delivered. A North Korean delegation heading to Washington after days of high-stakes talks with the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo.
Our own Ellison Barber is live in Washington with what that means for a possible nuclear summit. Ellison.
Good morning to all of you. The guy delivering this letter will be the most senior North Korean official to visit the White House in about 18 years. In 2000, a top North Korean military leader delivered a letter to then-President Bill Clinton from Kim Jong-il. North Korea's Vice Chairman Kim Jong-chol is set to visit the White House and do something similar today, hand a letter to President Trump from Kim Jong-il's son and North Korea's current leader, Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-chol is one of the dictator's closest aides. He's a former intelligence chief currently sanctioned by the U.S. because of cyber attacks and the 2014 hack on Sony Pictures. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo spent the past 2 days meeting with Kim in New York. The summit is, of course, not officially back on, but Pompeo says there is significant progress.
We've made real progress in the last 72 hours towards setting the conditions. The conditions are putting President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un in a place where we think there can be real progress made.
President Trump says hopefully the June 12th summit happens, but he says he wants it to be meaningful. The president said they might need a second and a third meeting or none. The U.S. wants to see complete and irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. It's unclear if North Korea will actually agree to that. Pete, Ansley, Brian?
Wow, so much going on and so much yet to know. Thanks so much. So today is going to be very interesting because we don't even have the formality of saying June 12th's back on. Yeah. We just assume it is. And what's in that letter? I mean, what is it about that letter that's so top secret? And I'm just wondering, too, we're starting to get ready to for the reality of they're not going to come in and say, grab your cranes and we'll give you the missiles. Yep. It's going to be stage by stage.
There's been the admission that there'll be a second or a third or a fourth meeting likely.
Which is logical, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah, Pompeo said that the 12th, well, the summit is expected to happen. Whether or not it's going to happen on the 12th, we're not sure. We do know our delegation is in Singapore. They have scoped it all out. I know North Korean officials have done that as well. So we'll have to see. It's definitely a chance for our president to bring peace to that area or help bring peace to that peninsula.
We'll see, hopefully.
Of course, Russia sticks their nose in it yesterday. Lavrov comes in and says, hey, I'd like a summit, and I'm going to loosen some restrictions on the tariffs.
Everyone wants a summit.
On the sanctions.
Russia just helping out.
All right, meanwhile, 5 minutes after the top of the hour, you knew when Roseanne had the horrendous tweet and her hit show was canceled, there'll be new scrutiny on everyone. First stop, Samantha Bee and her vile comments about Ivanka Trump.
That's right. She made a more than off-color remark about Ivanka Trump as part of a comedy routine. Now she got a lot of scrutiny, pressure for it. She's now apologizing. This is what she tweeted yesterday, Samantha Bee. She said, I would like to sincerely apologize to Ivanka Trump and to my viewers for using an expletive on my show to describe her last night. It was inappropriate and inexcusable. I crossed a line, and I deeply regret it. So apology and regret. The interesting part is, well, how would TBS respond?
Yeah, well, she works for TBS. She's a comedian. She has a successful show there, especially for the folks who don't like this administration because she attacks him. They responded to TBS saying, Samantha Bee has taken the right action in apologizing for the vile and inappropriate language she used about Ivanka Trump last night. Those words should not have been aired. It was our mistake, too, and we regret it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. How do you hurt a talent? How do you kill a show? Sponsors. State Farm, we have asked TBS to suspend our advertising in the program. Auto Trader, thank you for those who reached out regarding our sponsorship of Full Frontal. The comments expressed by Samantha Bee were offensive, unacceptable, and do not reflect the views. As a result, we have suspended our sponsorship. So even though she says a lot of this for people I know who watch the show, now all of a sudden, even though it was scripted, even though it was edited or not edited, and then aired taped, now everyone's apologizing, but the producers and everyone who signed off on it are culpable because that's the format.
The way you make money is advertisements, and if the advertisers aren't choosing her show to advertise, then she does lose a lot of money.
And so folks today are now pointing to that double standard. For Samantha Bee, it's such a great point. On tape, vetted through everyone, produced. Now it's good enough to apologize. That's enough. She keeps her job. No one gets fired. But on the other side, one tweet at the wrong time, terrible as it may be, and the whole entire show is canceled. It makes me wonder whether if a comedian had said the same thing about, say, Hillary Clinton's daughter, if she had been president, whether or not a conservative comedian had done that, whether that would have, an apology would have been enough. The double standard is always glaring.
I mean, people are just so tired of the hatred on both sides. You know,
I'm tired of the.
She's a mother. You have to. The litmus test is what would you say about another mother? What would you say in front of your kids? You have to think of it that way.
In a way, I just also know in those comedy clubs and things you do, a lot of stuff is for adults only. I mean, that's what she's looking at. Even though TBS is a basic cable outlet, but I laugh at State Farm and Auto Trader. Really, you had no idea? If you look back at her shows, that's what won her awards last night. She got an award last night,
for what?
And they locked out the press.
What the award they gave her was for social advancement, or
yes. It's called holding the torch for Jon Stewart while he works his farm, because it's basically the same comedy.
Well,
by the way,
anything, if you want to look at the bright side of this, maybe this is a chance for all of us to have a little dialogue and say, look, there are things that you can't say. That it's just taking it too far.
I'll take the other side.
Why does she feel that way about someone?
I think we should say whatever you want. Say whatever you want. I believe in free speech. I think comedians should be funny. If you want to be vile, then you can be vile over here, and vile people can listen to your vileness, and you'll be relegated to the side. I don't want to live in a world where there's a free speech police that says that word's acceptable, you're acceptable, I'm not acceptable, because who chooses?
Right.
It's always
I would say the word
media
you use,
choosing.
Not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
I think we agree with that.
Not acceptable.
I don't accept that word.
And who thinks that way about anyone? And some people on the left are even calling her out on this. Sally Fields.
Right. When we're in trouble as a society, I always look to the Flying Nun. And again, I go there. By the way, she hated that show. She wouldn't even watch it back. Sister Patril, who flew around because nuns have to make progress.
Let me read Sally Fields' tweet. Go, Brian.
All right. I like Samantha Bee a lot, but she is flat out wrong to call Ivanka a C word. Are powerful, beautiful, nurturing, because the C word are powerful, beautiful, nurturing,
She's
honest.
actually taking a shot.
Doubling down.
Yes, she's taking a shot at Ivanka Trump in that tweet. It's unbelievable. There's, what else do you have to say? All right. Well, there's another ad that caught something else.
It's tough to quote somebody.
What do you even say? Yeah. So there's a political ad that came out. This guy's running for Congress in Virginia. He's a Democrat. He ran an ad. Again, this got produced. This got approved, and he decided to compare President Trump to Bin Laden. Listen to this ad.
Dan Helmer. I approve this message. I'm different. I'm not a politician. I'm a Rhodes Scholar who served in combat. I'm for a Medicare for All option and against drug companies that rip off seniors. I'll fight the gun lobby to protect children, not guns. After 9/11, the greatest threat to our democracy lived in a cave. Today, he lives in the White House. No one, even the president, is above the law. Barbara Comstock has beaten every politician. I'm different.
Well, Barbara Comstock, she said this is the first time he's ever run. He's out of touch. He's relying on stunts to gain traction. It's outrageous and offensive, she says.
I'm actually not. Go ahead.
He is a veteran. He fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. I have to make an excuse for it. It's an analogy that doesn't work, but again, highly produced. There's obviously someone behind him with money. They think that this is the way to do it because they say his campaign is flailing. He's getting buried, and this is a chance to get
I'm actually not surprised by it at all. It really is. So here's the three things he stands for. Expand the welfare state. Medicare for all. Okay, that's good. How are we going to pay for that? 2, we're going to take away your guns. Okay, modern Democratic Party. And 3, we're going to resist, and we're going to compare the president to the worst terrorist in the world. Literally, that's how devoid the Democratic Party is of ideas. And that kind of ad exposes it. Because to your point, Brian, they thought about it. This wasn't like an offhand comment.
Yeah.
Well, and Osama bin Laden, think about what he did. He's responsible for 9/11. He's responsible for so many deadly attacks around the world.
So how good was Jillian and Rob this morning on Fox and Friends First? Did you
They were
watch the show?
excellent. I did watch.
Right. Jillian, good job this morning.
You can keep going if you want.
No, it's all right.
Here to listen.
I was just yelled at to toss, but I did want to point that out.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your viewership. Okay. Let's start off with this Fox News alert right now. And brand new photos of a suspected deputy killer taken days before the murder. There's now a $46,000 reward for information leading to Stephen Wiggins. He's charged with killing Sergeant Deputy Daniel Baker and stealing his gun. Rain is now complicating the manhunt in Tennessee, washing away footprints and scents. Police urging the public to stay alert.
Anyone that's capable of murdering one of our brothers, one of our servants in our community, that is an urgent and immediate threat to the public safety.
A GoFundMe for Baker's family has raised more than $20,000 so far. A manhunt is expanding after an escaped prisoner steals a truck. Police say Allenton John walked off working outside a prison in Lake County, Florida. He then crossed 4 lanes of traffic to this farm where he stole a pickup truck.
The truck parked with the keys in it, and when he turned around, the truck was gone.
Police say the 2001 silver Toyota may have a gun inside. John is serving a 15-year sentence for pointing a gun at the mother of his children and hitting her with it. We now know prosecutors questioned former FBI Director James Comey as they consider criminal charges against Andrew McCabe. That's according to the Washington Post. The former deputy FBI director was fired in April after the Justice Department accused him of lying to federal investigators over media leaks. If he's charged and convicted, he could face 5 years behind bars. His attorney says he did nothing wrong. Let's look at your headlines. Send it to you.
Right. We'll see when that IG report comes out.
Yep.
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you, Joey.
Meanwhile, 13 minutes after the hour, I see him in the wings. The media hammering President Trump after he pardoned conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza. I'll stop now.
He's banding about this big bouquet of pardons.
Pardon frenzy, all about a signal to his allies.
He's throwing raw meat, a bone to the far right here.
Wow. Dinesh joining us live. Dinesh D'Souza joining us live for his first TV interview since being pardoned by the president.
Plus, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau threatening to retaliate after President Trump issues new steel tariffs overnight. Stuart Varney says, bring it on, baby. And he's next.
Did you say that? Canada, Mexico, and the EU threatening to retaliate after the U.S. imposing a new round of tariffs on steel and imports from those countries overnight.
But President Trump standing his ground and summing up his reaction in just 2 words: fair trade.
Here to weigh in is the host of Varney and Company and the Fox Business Network, Stuart Varney. Stuart, not only are we going at China, we're going at our friends. Is this the right move?
Look, President Trump did not get the response that he wanted from our trading partners when he suggested we're going to get tariffs. He made that suggestion about a month ago. Didn't get what he wanted. He's taking a very hard line, and the result is a very tense standoff between Europe, Canada, Mexico, and to some degree, China. Now, that scares a lot of people. When you have the words trade war in the headlines, that's very worrying to investors and voters and everybody else. You don't want a trade war, so you sort of think, oh, what's going on here? But the fact is, the president is taking a very tough line. It's all part of these long-term negotiations, which are going to go on for a long time to come. Don't expect any kind of change or any kind of real peace and movement for some time to come. Now, there's one thing to add here. Overnight, China reduced tariffs on a whole variety of their imports going into China. It doesn't affect America that much. The Chinese are not giving that much. Wilbur Ross, Commerce Secretary, he's on his way to China this weekend. So you're going to get results out of that. China, U.S. The rest of it, a standoff, and that's in place.
Is it smart to take on our friends as well as our enemies at the same time?
Look, it's part of the negotiation. This is a global chessboard. There's lots of moving parts here. America, China, European Union, Canada, Mexico, they're all moving. The discussions are taking place between all of them. They're all going on at the same time.
How does this affect the average American family?
In the short run, if these tariffs are imposed and stay, then you will have rising prices, small rises in prices for some items. That's it. I think our economy can absorb it. Our economy is extremely strong at this point. We can absorb minor leagues price increase on some products.
Does it preserve
short
jobs?
Term.
Does it preserve certain industries or jobs?
Well, interesting point, Peter, because this morning, Peter Navarro, one of the top trade negotiators, he's got an op-ed piece in USA Today, and he's defending these tariffs. He's saying this is part of President Trump's plan to rebuild industrial America, and he gives several examples of how that's going.
Varney and Company, 9 to noon, and FBN. More on this. I think the problem is, too, the Trump team is fighting with each other. They got to get on one page. But
you always want to get the last word in on trade. You always do.
All right.
Good luck.
To America and the people of Earth. Thank you very much, Stuart.
Thank you.
Comedian Samantha Bee, apologizing for her vulgar remark about Ivanka Trump, but Mark Levin says it's not enough. More from the great one next.
Plus, Mark will also weigh in on the president's pardon of filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza, and Dinesh joins us live for his first TV interview since getting that news. Welcome back. A couple of quick headlines for you. Missouri Governor Eric Greitens will officially leave office today. Greitens was facing impeachment after being charged with invasion of privacy, stemming from an affair he had before becoming governor. That charge was dismissed, but there's new questions over if he violated campaign finance laws. Lieutenant Governor Mike Parsons will be sworn in today. And former Obama Attorney General Eric Holder will speak at the annual Politics and Eggs event in New Hampshire today. Many presidential hopefuls have also attended the event in the past, but Holder says at this point he's only thinking about running in 2020. There are going to be a lot of them.
Over 50, I think.
Yep.
From a new book out of the Obama administration to a crass remark about Ivanka Trump by Samantha Bee, it has been a very busy week.
So what does the host of Life, Liberty, and Levin, Mark Levin, have to say about all of this?
How about busy day? I sat down with him to talk about that.
If somebody had said that about Chelsea Clinton, if somebody had said that about either of the Obama daughters, the nation in unison would be repulsed.
Samantha Bee did apologize for her comment and using that word to describe Ivanka Trump. Your reaction?
Yeah, and Roseanne Barr apologized too. She should be fired. She is a vile, disgusting person. It's not even a question of comedy. It's just a matter of what you say about the president's daughter. Who the hell talks this way? Seriously, she should be fired. Take her apology with her.
Mark, let's move on to some pardons that are coming down this week. Dinesh D'Souza gets a pardon. Are you for that?
What Dinesh D'Souza did not warrant 20 months, give or take, in a federal prison. That's not how those cases are normally handled. The radical left-wing Democrat who was U.S. attorney there in the Southern District of New York, Comey's buddy, Mueller's buddy, the buddy of that crowd, went after him. Went after Dinesh D'Souza. And the president looked at this, and the pardon power is in there for a president to intervene if he thinks he should, and he said, you know what? I'm not buying this. I don't like what was done to him, and I'm pardoning him. I'm not going to react to all the left-wing conspiracy kooks out there. They're going to be there no matter what happens. This is why I like this president. He does what he believes in, and he's doing the right thing. They deserved pardons, in my humble opinion, as part of the justice system, what was done to them. Sometimes injustices are actually done to conservatives and Republicans. And in this case, that's the case.
It looks as though back again is Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Trey Gowdy said, if I'm Attorney General Jeff Sessions, I'd probably leave the job because I'm not going to be serving the president well. How do you feel about now, even though it's almost a year later, the Russia investigation goes on and Jeff Sessions still has that job? Where do you stand, Mark?
Well, I've known Jeff Sessions for 30 years. We worked together at the Justice Department. He was U.S. Attorney. I was Chief of Staff, and I like him very, very much. I think he made a terrible mistake here. I agree. If he was going to recuse himself, he probably shouldn't have taken the job. Or if he did recuse himself, what he did, he probably should have stepped down. The president has a right to an attorney general of his choosing. But I would say to Trey Gowdy, maybe you ought to step down a little quicker, too. Your nonsense about this not being a spy, but an informant, and in criminal cases we call them informants. It's not a criminal case. It's a counterintelligence case. Don't you know the difference? You're a former federal prosecutor. They don't want to call him a spy, and now they're telling us, you know, the Trump campaign was never investigated. Let me suggest that Mr. Gowdy and Mr. Rubio and some of the others go back and listen to the testimony of Mr. Comey himself in March of 2017, in which he said in front of the House Intelligence Committee that, among other things, the Trump campaign is under investigation. What's wrong with these guys? They're handed information about a spy. They should be concerned about these police state tactics, but they never are. Instead, they want to vote to protect Mueller. How about you vote to protect the Constitution? You want to investigate Russia's influence in our elections? Why don't you investigate the Obama administration that turned a blind eye to it, that was in charge when the Russians were interfering with our election, rather than the victims? The victims, that is, the Trump people.
You just gave me a perfect segue to an excerpt in the New York Times this week of a brand new book that's out by Ben Rhodes, who was a close aide to the president, especially when it came to foreign policy. Evidently, Ben Rhodes got permission to talk about what he was talking about after the election came down. One of the things that President Obama speculated was, maybe I came along 10 years too early. And my assumption is he means the country wasn't ready for him. Do you believe the country wasn't ready for President Obama?
I believe the country's never been ready for President Obama, because when you want to fundamentally transform a country, you know what that means, Brian? That means you don't love your country. You want to fundamentally transform a country. What do you want to do? Fundamentally transform its economy from capitalism to something else? Fundamentally transform its government from a constitutional republic to something else? We've never been able to hold these leftists, and Obama included, to their definition of fundamental transformation. When you love your wife, you don't say, you know what, honey, I want to fundamentally transform you. Or when you love your kids, I want to fundamentally transform you, your kids. That sounds pretty weird to me. So maybe America has never been ready for Barack Obama. And should never be ready for Barack Obama.
And he also called this president, when he was a nominee, a cartoon. What's your reaction to President Obama calling President Trump a cartoon?
I'll take a cartoon over a leftist any day of the week, and let me tell you something about this cartoon. This cartoon has stood up to the North Koreans, he has stood up to the Iranians, he stood up to the Chinese, he stood up to the Russians. Nothing Obama was capable of doing. He didn't surveil the Prime Minister of Israel like Obama did, or Jewish groups like Obama did, or members of Congress like Obama did. He hasn't used the IRS against his political opponents like Obama did. He wouldn't have stood still for Benghazi the way Obama did. He wouldn't have undermined the United States military the way Obama did, or undermined local police forces the way Obama did, or stuffed our courts with left-wing law professors the way Obama did. Cartoon character? I don't think we need lectures from Barack Obama, quite frankly.
Mark Levin on his game. You can catch more of that 10 o'clock with Life, Liberty, and Levin. He's got David Limbaugh and Andrew McCarthy for the entire hour. He's one of the clearest thinkers in the business. He's an awesome radio host. Glad to have him on the team.
A great show.
Yeah, so smart.
All right, good stuff, Brian. Well, the media hammering President Trump after he pardoned conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza.
He's banding about this big bouquet of pardons.
Pardon frenzy, all about a signal to his allies.
He's throwing raw meat, a bone to the far right here.
Dinesh joins us live for his first TV interview since being pardoned. Next.
We start with a Fox News alert. President Trump granting a full pardon to Dinesh D'Souza, the conservative author and filmmaker who pleaded guilty to campaign finance fraud in a New York Senate election, but is now breathing a sigh of relief.
All right, Dinesh D'Souza joins us right now for his first TV interview since his official pardon. Dinesh, what was it like to get the call from the president? Did you know it was coming?
I did not know. I was in my office just working away, and the operator came on the line and said, is this Dinesh D'Souza? Yes. Hold the line for the President of the United States. And there was Trump. And the President said, Dinesh, you've been a great voice for freedom. And he said that, I got to tell you, man to man, you've been screwed. He goes, I've been looking at the case. I knew from the beginning that it was fishy. But he said upon reviewing it, he felt a great injustice had been done, and that using his power, he was going to rectify it, sort of clear the slate. And he said he just wanted me to be out there, to be a bigger voice than ever, defending the principles that I believe in.
Dinesh, you tweeted this out. Obama and his stooges tried to extinguish my American dream and destroy my faith in America. Thank you, Donald Trump, for fully restoring both. Why do you feel like you were singled out by the Obama administration?
Well, here's the important thing, and that is that justice is not simply a matter of, hey, did you break the law? It's also a matter of, was the penalty proportion to the crime? And did other people who do the same thing get the same penalty? Now, I've become very familiar with these campaign finance cases over the past several years. No American in our country's history has ever been indicted, let alone prosecuted, let alone locked up for doing what I did. There's just not a single case. And so what happened here is that Obama and his team, Eric Holder, Preet Bharara in New York, these guys decided to make an example of me. And I think that the reason for this was Obama's anger over my movie that I made about him. I know that Obama was upset about the movie because he was raging about it on his own website, BarackObama.com. And so this was a vindictive political hit that was kind of aimed at putting me out of business, essentially destroying my credibility, making it impossible for me to make movies, write books. In that sense, it failed, but it still left a cloud over me. I would be a lifelong felon. I would never be able to vote and never have my full rights. And so I'm very grateful to President Trump for giving me those rights back.
Now, Dinesh, of course, the so-called mainstream media says this is symbolism, it's signaling, this is not real justice. What do you say to those who look sideways at this?
Well, I think it's important to just look at what happened. Preet Bharara, my prosecutor, tweeted out yesterday, and he goes, let's just face the facts. Dinesh D'Souza voluntarily pleaded guilty to this offense. Now, this word voluntarily needs to be put into quotation marks because, in reality, this is how this kind of thing happens. The government says to you, we're going to charge you with violating the campaign finance law. Are you going to plead guilty or not guilty? You say, I'm thinking of pleading not guilty. Then the government says, well, all right, we're now going to put a second charge on top of that. This is called filing a false document. You say, well, did I do something else wrong? They go, no, no, it's the same thing. We're just describing it in a different way and appending a second charge, but this one carries 5 years in federal prison. So essentially, we're going to destroy your life. Now, if you plead guilty to the first charge, we'll drop the second one. The point I want to make here is that this kind of legal bludgeoning tactic is used not only against the guilty, but also against the innocent. It's a way of, in a sense, forcing you to submit. And then, of course, they put on a very solemn robe and say, well, he voluntarily pleaded. The voluntary issue here is highly dubious.
Right. And your feeling after spending time in jail, how would it change you?
Well, I was put in a halfway house in San Diego for 8 months, sleeping overnight in a dormitory with actually 120 hardened felons. It's not my normal crowd. It was an eye-opening experience. I came out of it fine. In some ways, I think temperamentally, emotionally, I'm even stronger than I was before. And I've learned a lot. So I don't, in that sense, regret my experience. But I do feel that as an immigrant, just the simple haunting sound of United States of America versus Dinesh D'Souza, an army of FBI agents going after you. And now a congressional committee has a copy of my FBI file, a file that the FBI had been refusing to release to Congress for a long time. And now we kind of know why, because when you look in the file, you see that I'm red flagged as a prominent conservative critic of the Obama administration. Now, why is that in my file? Well, it's in my file because the FBI is signaling to the Holder Justice Department, hey, here's a guy you might want to go after. Here's a guy who's one of your political enemies. And so this is the kind of way the signaling works. The signaling is within the government targeting me for selective prosecution.
Wow. All of that for giving Wendy Long, this New York politician, $20,000. Thank you, Dinesh.
Appreciate your time. Congratulations.
Yeah. All right, let's hand it over to Jillian, who has some more headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. Let's get you caught up on some of your stories that we're following, starting with this. A teenager shoots and kills his uncle, who showed up at his home with a hatchet. The 16-year-old grabbing a rifle when Jerry Lee Robinson tried breaking into the house in Mississippi. His mother says her son was home alone and acted in self-defense.
He tried to hurt my son, and my son, he did what he was supposed to. He defended himself. It could have been the other way around. It could have been my son. I'm the one picking up and having to bury him.
Robinson had a history of threatening the family. No charges have been filed. Kim Kardashian West is speaking out about her meeting with President Trump on prison reform in an exclusive interview with Mike.com.
He really spent the time to listen to our case that we were making for Alice. He really understood, and I am very hopeful that this will, turn out really positively.
The reality star asked the president to pardon Alice Johnson, a 62-year-old great-grandmom serving a life sentence for a first-time drug offense. Can you spell koinonia? I can barely say it, but this whiz kid can certainly spell it. Watch.
Koinonia, koinonia.
Koinonia. K-O-I-N-O-N-I-A. Koinonia.
That is correct.
This never gets old. That's 14-year-old Karthik Namani, crowned the Scripps National Spelling Bee champion. The definition of koinonia, the Christian fellowship or body of believers. The Texas teen beat out a record 515 contestants and takes home more than $42,000. Wow, pretty impressive. Congrats to him. Also pretty impressive, our Janice Dean, who is outside right now tracking this rain.
Yes, I know, but you know what? It's stopped here in the New York City area, and it has to because it's our first day of our All-American Summer Concert Series. Thompson Square is going to be here. Let's take a look at the maps, and then we're going to talk about something really yummy. Here's your forecast rainfall. Unfortunately, as we go through the next couple of days, we're going to see the potential for rain in the forecast along the eastern seaboard, the threat for tornadoes across the central U.S., and it's going to be hot. We could set records east of the Rockies today and tomorrow, especially across the south. There are your highs, your forecast highs for Saturday. Today, by the way, is the first official day of hurricane season. All right, did you guys know that today is National Donut Day? Woohoo! And we are celebrating with Tim Hortons Donuts. Tim Hortons, by the way, started off in Canada, Ontario. Tim Hortons was a hockey player, an NHL hockey player, and Tim Hortons has come across the border to give us some donuts for National Donut Day. And if you go into participating donut locations, Tim Hortons, you ask them for their 24-karat gold Timbit, and you could win a whole year's worth of free donuts at Tim Hortons. Yay!
Pretty to eat, Janice. They're too pretty to eat. Look at them.
Eat the gold.
Well, yes, you apparently can eat the gold. I'm going to try this out right now.
I've never.
Is it chocolate inside?
No, it's just a regular donut, but it's got gold on the outside.
Real 24-karat gold.
Really good.
Thanks, Canada. We owe you one. Now we're going to put a tariff on this and send it back.
Hockey, beer, and Tim Hortons. That's what we're all about.
All right, Janice.
All right,
Janice. Thank you. See you later on for sure. Now, a tough turn here. Fox News alert. An urgent manhunt growing by the hour for the man who murdered a sheriff's deputy, the 28th officer killed this year alone. That number already higher than the last 2 years. Will the war on cops ever end? We'll bring it to you.
4 law enforcement officers shot overnight in South Carolina.
This is something that attacks our civic fabric.
Sheriff's deputy in Washington State was killed while responding to a suspected home invasion.
Our heart's shattered with this. This is one of our best deputies.
They put themselves at risk for everybody else, and too often they are harmed in the process.
I'm speechless. It feels like a nightmare.
This horrific epidemic continues. This year alone, 28 officers have been killed by gunfire.
The officers who've died at the hands of gunshots is up. This is a bad time in the United States for law enforcement and the attacks that are occurring.
So far this year, 28 officers have been gunned down in the line of duty, killed by gunfire. Just this week, we told you about that Tennessee sheriff's deputy who was shot and killed. A manhunt for the gunman still continues. Here with his reaction is former Nashville, Tennessee police officer Vincent Hill. Vincent, thanks for being with us.
Hey, good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. So, a major problem here, obviously, and we're already up to 28 of those officers killed by gunfire this year. We're not even halfway through the year. Last year, the total number was 35. What's the problem and what needs to be done?
Well, I think it's a sign of the times, and I think it's a sign of what's fashionable in the mainstream media, right? Everyone has this hatred for police, and everyone points that finger to President Trump. But I think there's a deeper issue that we're dealing with here. I mean, we're already at 28 officers. It seems like this is occurring every day. And the thing that upsets me the most, there's no protest, there's no kneeling. Who's kneeling for these officers? Who's protesting for these officers that are going out and doing the most dangerous job in the world? And just like that, their lives can be taken.
I know. Why is that? Why is the story being ignored?
You know, Ainsley, I think about that every day, and I talk about these cases on my podcast, Beyond the Badge. You know, how the mainstream media plays a big role into making the police look like the enemy and making police, oh, if they die, it doesn't matter because, oh, that's what they're supposed to do. But no, police are supposed to go home to their families every night, just like every other citizen in this country. That's what it's all about.
What do you think as a police officer? What do you think about when you see the images of the marches and the protests and you see those church members standing on the steps against our police force saying, don't even call 911 if you have an emergency?
Well, I think it's just ludicrous, to say the least. I mean, at the end of the day, police are the people that will run into a building, a falling building, to save someone. But yet, because of the mainstream media and what's fashionable, what's going on in social media, police are hated, they're disrespected. But again, these are people that will run into a building, run into a fire, put their lives on the line for a citizen, and they get no respect.
Yeah, I know, for a very small paycheck. God bless them all. Thank you so much, Vincent, for being with us. Have a great weekend. All right, have you heard you're welcome. Have you heard what former President Obama said about President Trump? He called him a cartoon. Former press secretary Sean Spicer's here to react to that, coming up in the next hour. Plus, Brian hosted a very special event honoring our veterans, including one who went from a battlefield hero to a hero here at home.
The warriors in this room, you guys are the reasons I've
woke up every single morning for the last 7 years while I've worked at Wounded Warrior Project.
That veteran, Army Specialist Andrew Coughlin, and the CEO of Wounded Warriors, they're going to join us live next.
All right, last night I had the honor of hosting the Wounded Warrior Project Annual Courage Awards benefit dinner. It was fantastic. They did an incredible job. The highlight of the evening, perhaps, was the Wounded Warriors Courage Award. That's how we closed the show. It's given to a veteran who went from a hero on the battlefield to a hero on the home front. And man, does Andrew fill out that stat. Joining us now is the recipient of the notable award, veteran U.S. Army Specialist Andrew Coughlin, and the CEO of Wounded Warriors, General Michael Linnington. Welcome back, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Good turnaround for you.
You don't sleep. It's amazing.
We just got off the stage. Andrew got the Courage Award. Andrew, first off, you're serving at war when?
I was in Iraq in 2003 and 2004.
And what were you doing?
I was an infantryman with 10th Mountain Division.
How much action did you see?
You know, we had our fair amount of firefights, mortar attacks, IEDs. You know, on a regular basis, I was there for a year. So.
General, what do you know about his service?
His service is not unusual for the very difficult period in Iraq in 2003 for the insurgency was alive and active. 10th Mountain Division got thrown in the middle of it in Iskandariyah, and Andrew and his unit bore a big part of that
You walked out for the people you saved and for the action and the way you served. You got a commendation medal, but you weren't done with that. Afterwards, you came back home, helping out on Wounded Warrior Project, and you also, one thing, you not only did you donate bone marrow as a teen, you also donated a kidney to somebody you served alongside with in Iraq.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, one of the guys I served with in Iraq needed a kidney, and I mean, there was no second thoughts. I mean, I don't want to go through life asking what if, so I just called, and I was a match.
And he's helping every time. Tell me about the Wounded Warrior Project and what you guys are doing, General, every day.
We've been in business since 2003, Brian, and really meeting the needs of our injured service members and their families. And families are important in the recovery, as Andrew's family was in his recovery. Being there for them, providing the services they need to help get back on their feet, get jobs, reach their full potential. It's really an honor for us to do what we do.
So when they come in, a lot of times, well, if you're missing a leg and arm, I know what the problem is. But if you come in and emotionally you don't know what's wrong, you guys pretty much pioneered how to treat it.
As you saw last night, treating the invisible wounds of war, the signature wounds of the last 17 years of conflict, are really a big part of what we do at Wounded Warrior Project. And that's certainly a priority of ours going forward. Getting warriors out of isolation. That's what Andrew's done very well, is encourage other warriors to seek help, get the treatment they need. Treatment works, and you can recover very quickly.
Andrew, your speech killed it. No notes. You nailed it. It was a great one. What does it mean for you to give back?
It's I mean, it's an honor to continue to serve my country and community. So.
And you do it on a regular basis. WoundedWarriorProject.org to give. Incredible project. General, you're doing a great job. Andrew, congratulations.
Thank you.
More Fox and Friends in a moment.